Hello, I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady, and in this video I'll be explaining all about how we teach children about time. I'll be exploring the challenges that we face in giving children a really deep sense of time. I'll be looking at the different units of time: seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, the names of the months, days in years and leap years, and we'll be exploring unit conversions between all those different measures of time. I'll explain teaching children about telling the time with analogue time and digital time, and I'll also talk about timetables and calculations with time. There's no particular videos you need to have watched before this one, so let's get started. First of all, I need to lean into quite how difficult a topic time is. I would personally say it's the trickiest topic in primary maths. It's the one that children struggle with most, and it's often the case that children get to secondary school, high school, and they need to talk about time in French or in whatever language they're studying, and teachers find that they don't even know how to tell the time. It's that hard, and yet when we look at the curriculum it all seems so simple, so straightforward, but it's just not. So why is that? Well, with length you can clearly see which lengths are longer and shorter than each other, and you can see that one length is 4 times as long as another. You can just see it. Time does not work like that for children. They haven't learned to see it on a linear scale. They don't experience it that way. Sometimes time goes really, really quickly, and sometimes it goes so slowly and just seems to last forever. And then you fall asleep and a whole load of hours have just flown by. And telling the time is genuinely tricky. And there's lots of rote-learned facts about how many days there are in a month and so on that have to be drilled and learnt, and all of that needs to come together. And so this topic is really difficult, and it's really important we teach it well, and you know what you're doing and you know what children are struggling with. So we really need to lean into each of the units of time and give children a deep multisensorial emotional experience of what those units of time are in their own consciousness. So the first is seconds, and we can learn to clap a second beat. And then we can challenge children to estimate a particular length of time. We can get them to hold their breath, see how long they can hold their breath for, so they're really concentrating on their seconds. And we want to get them to tune into their experiences of seconds in their world beyond the classroom, so they pay attention to seconds when the lesson's over. Perhaps some of them do sport and are setting themselves challenges. If they have watches, they can watch the second hand and time different things that interest them. And then we can build up 60 seconds in a minute, get them used to a minute, and we want them to estimate times in minutes. How many minutes do you think it's been since the start of this lesson? Find out who's closest. How many minutes do you get for break? How many minutes will it be till we get lunch? You've got 5 minutes left to finish off your task. You've got 10 minutes for this activity. You've got 20 minutes for this game in PE, so that's 10 minutes either side. And then of course we can link those experiences with minutes to telling the time, which we'll look at later in this video. And hours flow on from that. You can link them to your experiences of the day in the classroom. How many hours till we go home? Or maybe that's just what the teachers are asking in the staff room. In your exploration of days, you should practice the naming of the days in the week. Can they all do it? Lots of schools use the song from the Addams Family. There's Sunday and there's Monday, there's Tuesday and there's Wednesday, there's Thursday and there's Friday, and then there's Saturday, days of the week. Can't sing it for copyright reasons, and also for the purpose of not destroying your eardrums. And then of course we don't just name days, we want the numbered days of the months. So we need dates on the board every day. Children need to interact with the date, and they need to become familiar with their months of the year. If they don't know them off by heart, there's a lovely song by Rodgers and Hammerstein from The Sound of Music that might just fit. January's cold and dark, February's chilly too. Easter is in March or April, May pole dancing's fun to do. June, July and August make up summer. September we go back to school. October's spooky, November's fireworks, and it's Christmas in December. And you can add actions and you can adjust that for cultural references until everybody really knows and understands the names of the months of the year. And while we're working on that at upper primary levels, we also want to make sure that children know how many days there are in each month. So there are the traditional rhymes: 30 days hath September, April, June and November. All the rest have 31. Except for February, my dear, which has 28 days clear and 29 in each leap year. or whichever version of that you use. I find it really helpful to draw a graph of the days in each month so children get used to the pattern. You've got this lovely effect in July and August, the two summer months in the Northern Hemisphere when we tend to be on holiday, that they are both longer months. And then apart from that, it goes up and down, with February being the one exception where it goes down more. So we start and finish the year with 31 days in each month. We've got this little duplication in July and August, and February is 28 or 29 days. And it's nice to explore which years are leap years by thinking about which year numbers divide by 4 while we're looking at all that. And then of course children need to know that we have 365 days in a year, or 366 days in a leap year. And you could make them check that by adding up the days of the months and checking that it works. In the video on angle rules, we talked about how there are 360 degrees in a full turn because people in ancient times were looking at the movements of the sky over a whole year, and they estimated that there were 360 days in a year. It's actually 365, but it's always nice to make those links even if they're just approximate, because links help to hook knowledge in. But in the end, it just has to be drilled. Children need to have deep personal experiences of all those measures of time, and they need to know the conversion facts, how many of one unit there is in the next unit. But it's slightly confusing because the final month is December. Dec is usually 10. October is the 10th month, but Oct is usually 8. And that's because of the historical roots of the month names in the Roman calendar, when there were only 10 months of the year. But of course now we have 12, but those later months stayed at the end of the year. So unit conversions with measures of time are quite straightforward if children deeply know their unit conversions for time. So if we said this takes 80 hours, how many days is that? They should be able to count off groups of 24 hours and work out how many days that is with how many hours left over. And if we said to a child that takes 3 hours and 16 minutes, that train journey, how many minutes is that? They should be able to puzzle that out by thinking of 3 groups of 60 and adding on the 16. The maths shouldn't be particularly difficult. It really is just a case of knowing your conversions, being able to picture what's going on, and being able to do basic maths. One final thing I'll say before moving on from units of time is that this is a good time to review the years. If someone was born in 1984, how old are they now? Well, there are 2 potential answers for that. It's nice to explore it. And how do we express years in Roman numerals? There's a specific video on Roman numerals. Here's a link to it now. And there's a lovely worksheet that has real photos of places with dates on in Roman numerals for children to puzzle out. If you've not done Roman numerals, now's a good time to work that in. And if you have done it, it's a lovely time to revise it. Right, let's have a look at telling the time. We'll start with the analog clock. And the first thing that you're going to need is a geared clock. You don't want one where the hands move freely. Children really need to learn to pay attention to how the hands move together. They need to clearly see that the hour hand on its own really does tell the time pretty much without the help of the minute hand. You can estimate how far past each hour you are. So without looking at the minute hand, just looking at the hour hand there, you can see that's about 3:30. And then the minute hand is just used to clarify that. So if I set that up there and cover up the minute hand, what time is it? Let's have a discussion. Can we estimate where the minute hand is going to be? And then we can reveal the minute hand to check. So the key to powerful teaching of time is to start with the hour hand, paying attention to the detail of it, to then understand how the minute hand shows more detail that gives you a more precise time, and if you've got a second hand as well, how that gives even more detail into the part of the minute. If you've got a clock on the wall of your classroom with a second hand, that's fantastic. And the most powerful thing, of course, is to get watches onto your children. So it's a wonderful idea to start this topic before Christmas and just ask as many parents as possible to get their children watches for Christmas. Cheap watches are fine with elastic straps that they can easily pull on. And if you've got a few spare for the children who don't manage that, then you're away and suddenly you can do amazing things as a class where everybody has got analog time on a watch. Ask them not to get digital ones. The digital ones are going to be quite straightforward, and I'll explain that now. So with your analog time, for some children it's all going to pop into place very quickly, but you need to pay attention to and diagnose the children who that's not happening for. Make sure that you work with them until they fluently can tell the time, and draw the times you give them on clock faces to show different times. Now moving on to digital time, of course with analog time we talk about past the hour as we go clockwise, and then to the hour as we come round the final half of the minute hand turn. With digital time we don't, and it's nice to use some counting beads to pay attention to that. So if I just grab my counting beads here and look at the first 60, and I'm not going to need the other 40, just looking at 60, and we can quickly practice some number bonds to 60, and then I can start saying this here, this is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, this is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. What time is this here in the middle? And that would be 2:30 or 2:30. And we want them to understand that time in both ways. And this time here would be 2:15 or 2:15. And we can fold this string and show the quarters. And 2:45 would be here, and it would also be 2:45. You can count the number of beads past 2 o'clock that it is. 5:23 would be 2:55. So we want to work on our number bonds to 60 and work on converting so many minutes to the hour into minutes past the previous hour as we make the transition to digital time. You can also do that with a good teaching analog clock. This clock here at 5 to the hour, it shows the 55 minutes. But it's nice to show it in a different visual form too. So children get used to linking so many minutes to the hour with so many minutes past the previous hour using their number bonds to 60. And once you get into digital time, you can start showing children digital times and asking them to draw them on their clock faces or show them with clocks with movable hands. And of course we can go into more detail. That might be 6:21. Can they show that? If they're just beginning, get them working in pairs. But ultimately, as a teacher, you want to check that each child deeply understands what's going on, and you want to work in detail with the children who are struggling. Or perhaps set another child who's flying to work in detail with a child who's struggling. Pairing them up is a really powerful thing to do. And finally, that's not clear whether it's AM or PM. It needs to say, unless we put a 0 in front, in which case that's 6:21 in the morning. And we need to make that extension to the 24-hour clock and make sure that children are correctly understanding what the 24-hour clock means. And of course, telling the time can and should be embedded into every aspect of your primary school life, not just in maths lessons, but all across the day and through all subjects. And that leads us on to calculating with time. We want to get children to use stopwatches, and we want to get them to calculate how long something's taken when they're just watching the second hand on a clock. But the most powerful topic for calculations with time that really stretches and challenges children is interpreting timetables. Now, you may have textbooks that have some timetable questions in them, but far and away the most powerful thing is to use bus or train timetables that are local to you. So either gather some from your local bus station or train station, or download them and print them out from the internet and use them to help children visualize their journey and put it into a context so it's meaningful and exciting. And if you can actually use public transport, or you can tap into children who do and who know what's going on, that's fantastic. It makes it so real. And it's really hard to do that if you're using timetables where the places have no meaning to the children at all. And you want to give them questions about how long a journey takes when they have to interpret the 24-hour clock and calculate journey times that go across hours. They're tricky. Get them working in groups at first. Make sure every child understands what they're doing and can do that. And then you extend that by talking about the whole length of a journey. Maybe from when you arrive at a bus stop at a certain time and you get the next bus, and when you arrive at your destination. And you can use contexts where buses get delayed, and you can set each other problems, which is really easy to do if you're working in your local context and children have a visual image of what's actually going on. And of course they can research journeys on the internet, so you can set them challenges to find timetables you've not shown them and puzzle out how they're going to get from one place to another that interests them, and get them to do a little bit of project work on writing that up and understanding how long a journey is going to take. So time really needs to be embedded into every aspect of primary school life, so you can practice children getting to grips with a deep understanding of seconds, minutes and hours, and of telling the time and knowing the date. You can have competitions for children to estimate how long something will take. Time is linked into so much, into science experiments, into PE activities, into cooking. Take a moment to pay attention to the timing aspect of those activities. But in this video, I've really tried to zoom in on each aspect of time, one part at a time, to help you understand how you can really focus on your teaching of time and make sure that every child has deeply got each aspect of it that they need to get. How you're going to run activities that will generate understanding, then check that each child has got what you're trying to teach them, and intervene if necessary. So we've covered giving children a deep sense of each unit of time. We've talked about the unit conversions. We explained about teaching telling the time with analogue and digital time. And I've explained about the need to teach children about timetables and calculations with time, especially the time intervals that bridge different hours. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you found it useful, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel so you can find it again. Mention it to your friends. If you've time to add a comment, that'd be great. If you've got any suggestions for other activities, I always value that. If you've any suggestions for improving the video, I'd really appreciate them. Please just tell us in comments. Thank you for investing this time in becoming a fantastic teacher. Hope you'll join me again soon for another video. Enjoy your teaching. Bye for now.